Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Epiphany Station. My name is Matty Taus, and one of the pastors here, and we're in week 4 of our teaching series called Shut Your Mouth. But before we jump into the conversation today, I've got 3 things that I want to let you know, especially if you're checking Epiphany Station out and you don't know what to expect. The first thing I want to let you know is that we don't take any kind of financial offering in the way that you might be expecting that's traditionally done in the church. Instead, if people want to give or support the mission of Epiphany or give their offering to God here, they can do in one of 3 ways, or all 3 ways, depending on your enthusiasm. We have red boxes at the back of the room. As you leave, you can choose to cash and check in there, and there's envelopes and whatnot. We have a tablet out by the Next Step station by the front door, and that has a card reader that you can swipe in, and then also you can choose to give online. The second thing that I want to let you know is that as the church grows and as we've got more things to do to care for more people, we have different areas of ministries that we can highlight of saying, okay, this is what we need next, this is what we need now, and there's specific people who can be able to fulfill that need. So I've got a short video to show you from our head of operations, Millie Westerman.
Hey everybody, my name is Millie. I'm the manager of operations here at Epiphany Station. I'm reaching out today because I'm looking for 3 different volunteers to get involved in some administrative work. These positions that I have are behind the scenes. Each position requires about 2 to 3 hours a week of volunteer time and would be done on Sunday afternoon or during the week. If you're interested at all in these positions, I would love to hear from you. They do require that you have some moderate computer skills, as you'll be using our software system for our church database, and also a high level of integrity. And so if you're interested at all in volunteering in this way, please mark that on your connection card, and I will get in touch with you this week. You can drop your connection card in the red boxes on the way out, and I look forward to hearing from you. My name's Millie, and this is my ministry.
I will just say one quick word on that is administration is sometimes seen as menial work, but you guys might not ever be able to fully comprehend how much of this just simply wouldn't happen if it weren't for people like Millie and like Kelly and other people that don't necessarily get to stand up front and you see what they do, but all the work they do in the background gets it done. And as we grow, we're going to need more administrators and people to do that. So if you're willing, on your connection card, you can let us know. Your connection card is a piece of paper on the far right-hand side of your program, and I want you to use it for another reason today. You can take that and you can tear that off. And the reason, I know, skills. And the reason that I want you to do that today is because, the reason I want you to look at it especially is because Easter is happening in 2 weeks. We're going to be having our 3rd Easter celebration at the Ralph Engelstad Arena. And this year, more than ever, we're going to need people to come and work with us and alongside us to get it done. In the past, that's been difficult because when you've got family in town, it's Easter celebration, you don't want to miss that. Well, don't worry. This year, we're going to have 2 experiences, one at 8:30 and one at 10:30. So what I'm asking every single person to do that calls Epiphany Station home is to consider working at one and attending the other. To choose one that you'll come and you'll give your effort and your energy and your gifts to, and then being able to attend the other one. We would love you to note it on your connection card. There's a special box that says volunteer for Easter. And if you're willing to do that, we would love to put you to work so we can do an amazing thing. What we're really looking at is about 900 people attending Easter at the Ralph. So we need a lot of people to come alongside. We want to greet them and make them feel more welcome than ever before. So if you're willing to do that, drop your connection card in the box as you leave. Now, like I said, we are in the 4th week of our teaching series called Shut Your Mouth. And for the first 3 weeks, we've talked about boasting and lies and complaining and how all those symptoms have a root cause and we want to find the solution. The next couple of weeks, we're going to get into some thicker stuff, possibly some more hurt-bearing stuff for you guys. And in light of that we're going to talk about next week, the spitting of venom, and this week, gossip, what I want to do is I want to open us up this morning with a terrible joke. And I don't expect you to laugh at the joke, but you can laugh at the joke teller. So, speaking about gossip, have you heard the rumor going around about the butter? Loads of people are spreading it. Oh, you're welcome. Now, as always, all jokes told at Epiphany Station can be found in the anthology of bad dad jokes given to fathers upon the birth of their child. But we're talking about gossip, and talking about gossip as a symptom. It's something that we do, not just because we enjoy doing it or even because we want to do it, but because it says something about what's going on the inside. And not only that, but with gossip, you can really draw a firm conclusion as to what the results are going to be eventually when gossip happens. And so much so is it known what the results are going to be, that there's actually a really old proverb that tells us what the results are going to be, that it's not a new thing. In fact, in Proverbs 25:23, it says, "As surely as the north wind brings rain, so a gossiping tongue causes anger." Now, a modern translation for our context might well be, "As surely as the north wind brings cold and ice and Canadians on bus tours, so a gossiping tongue causes anger." Now, it's not the person gossiping that gets angry, although they usually are angry, that's why they're doing it, or even the person who's hearing it. Who's the person that gets angry when gossip is told? The person it's about. That's where the real anger happens, when they hear about it, that people have been talking behind their back and slandering them. So what I want to do to make sure that we all understand what we're talking about this morning is I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to stand up in a second, or raise your hand if you're unable to stand or don't want to. But I'm going to ask you to stand up if you've ever been gossiped about. Would you take to your feet or raise your hand in the air if someone has ever gossiped about you, small ways, big ways, today, yesterday, 25 years ago, ever been gossiped about? Okay. Now, for those of you standing, thank you very much. For those of you sitting down, you just haven't heard about it yet. But here's the next thing I want you to do. I'm going to invite you to sit or lower your hand if you have not gossiped about another person. If you've never gossiped, you've never told stories, you've never shared information in a gossipy way about anyone else, you can take a seat. All right, thank you. Now you can all take a seat. Thank you very much. Because I wanted to highlight, there's the thing with gossip, is gossip doesn't come out of the ether. It doesn't come out of nowhere. There's a source of gossip. And for every one of us to have been gossiped about, there has to be a gossiper. And most of us have been on both sides of that engagement. So we know what it's like to be gossiped about, yet we still have a tendency or a drive to gossip about others. And it's not just about individuals. We take a lot of joy in often doing it about organizations or people groups or sports teams. Take, for example, this last fall, in that our local football team, NCTC Pioneers, got absolutely blasted because what happened was they were said to have disrespected the national anthem and the giving of the colors of the flags by not coming out during that ceremony. And it was at the time of really all the Colin Kaepernick stuff coming up as well, so it was very raw and sensitive. So when people heard about that, they really went after NCTC, after the coaches, after the administration, and after the boys that have come to our community for education. And it got nasty, really quick. And the comments and the posts were calling them things like jerks and trash and a disgrace and garbage. And it even got to the point of racial insults being thrown at these boys because of something they never even did. People assumed that they weren't out there because of some political statement, so they went after them. And we don't like the facts to get in the way of a good gossip. So what happened is that stuff goes out there and people go crazy. What we found out later is that there was a time delay on the start of the game because of some weather concerns. And they were actually still back in the locker room praying together, as they do before games, like really evil people do. And the national anthem had started and they didn't know. But once they found out that it had started, they decided that it would be more respectful to wait behind the stanchions before heading out there during the national anthem. So what happened is they got taken to task and hammered and gossiped about over something they never even did. And the reason I bring that up is because it's disgusting, first and foremost, that would happen in our community to a bunch of outsiders, mostly the boys that are on that football team and that administration, and they were treated that way. But it's not unique. You know, that happens a lot. And the reason is, why? Why is that? Why does that happen? Why do we want to assume the worst? And as soon as we've assumed the worst, do we spread that gossip? Well, like with every symptom, there is a cause. And the symptom of gossip has a cause that it is so vicious and so insidious that it overrides everything we know about gossip. We know what it's like to be on the receiving end. We know the pain and the anger and the hurt. Yet something in us drives us, reprograms us to do it anyway. To throw people under the bus, to gossip and slander about them anyway. And that cause is a lack of love. You think about the people you've gossiped about. They're not people that you love. Or they're not people that you have a strong love for. We tend to gossip about the people that we don't have a care for. Or that somewhere along the line we decided they don't deserve my mercy, my grace, my love. And as much as we might say, well, you know, some people, we deserve to talk about them because they do things in public or they do really bad things, and we deserve other people to know about that to keep them safe and all these other nonsense. And what we say is, it's their fault. Because of their behavior, they don't deserve me to show love towards them. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. That's one of the worst excuses I've ever heard in my life, and I've heard it come out of people's mouths. The truth is, when we gossip, we are at fault. Because love is not dependent on the person receiving it. Love is dependent on the person choosing to display it, choosing to give it. So when we gossip, it's not them that's done something wrong or something so horrendous that they deserve it. It's we, as Paul lovers of people, that are to blame. So that when we hear of a vehicle accident, and we assume, oh, they're probably texting or driving, or they're probably drunk, we're showing a lack of love for someone who caused that accident. When someone gets arrested, long before the trial, long before the verdict, we assume the worst. And we tar them and we feather them and say, they are a bad person. Let me tell you about them. And we make gossip. When someone sleeps with someone, when someone chooses to get divorced, when someone chooses an abortion, instead of choosing to display love to an individual, we make the choice when we gossip to show how much we don't love them. And to show how much we are filled with a hate that comes from somewhere. So gossip becomes this root that whenever anyone displays language we don't like, or priorities we don't agree with, or purchases we don't think they should have made, or made mistakes, we choose not to love them. And this is such a long-lasting, destructive thing that it is riddled throughout God's story. And he makes point after point after point about it. One of the kind of fathers of the church, one of the early church leaders, a guy called Peter, actually wrote a letter in which he talked about what it means in this kind of situation, circumstance, to live for God. To live in a way that God would actually deem this is how to deal with your situation. And he goes into talking about even if you are on the receiving end of persecution and you're being gossiped about and you're being slandered about, you need to do this. And in 1 Peter 4:8, he says, most important of all, is to continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. The most important thing you can do when faced with any relationship is to show deep love for each other. See in there that it doesn't say have love. See in there that it doesn't say like the person. Show it, it says. That shown love becomes the most important thing that you can do. And with our words, that's one way we can do that. We can show that we love people by the way that we choose to speak and not to speak. We can also show that we love some hate. When we love some gossip and some lies and some boasting and some complaining, we can choose with our words to display to them how we truly feel. And so important is it to God that love is shown. If you were to take the whole Bible, read it front to back, you would find that God has this habit, not of just declaring that he loves, but making sure that it is shown. In fact, I think that the times that he's shown up most impactfully have been the times when he has needed to interject that love is not a feeling, but it is an action that is shown in the exterior. You think about it. You think of the story of Adam and Eve. The first time that bad was chosen, evil was chosen, and a relationship between Adam and Eve broke down. And God showed up and interjected into the problem and said, here is the issue, and it's not going to stand. You think about the time that God looked over the whole planet, and everywhere he saw evil and hate, apart from in Noah's family. So he wiped the slate clean. He said, this little hub here of actually showing love for each other, that's so important. I'm not going to let the rest wipe it out. I'm going to take them off the slate. Whenever he would come across a city that was so infested with evil and hate, he couldn't find one good person in the whole place, he would destroy it. When he would look around and see that people had been enslaved and were crying out and were dying, he would pluck them from that. And when the world needed it most, when more people than ever didn't have a relationship with God, he interjected in the most impactful way to show that love needs to be shown. And for some of us sitting in this room, when things were at our worst, when we were bottom of the barrel, when we didn't feel love towards others or love towards God, and we weren't receiving any, he interjects yet again to display and show that love has to be given. It has to be on the exterior. So God's major interjections through history are basically not only to demand, but to say, in response to what I have done, for my sake, for what I'm going to show you, that's how you love. That's why you love. That's how you go about it. So how do we do that? How do we try and reflect any kind of love? How do we try and grow and develop love? So when gossip becomes a thing, we have more love for the person than to hate them by spreading it or hate them by starting it. Well, that's what we're going to close out our conversation with today, because every week we have next steps. Things that I believe that if we're to do and to engage in will further our ability to love God and love people in this way. So the first thing that we have to do to be able to love people and to put a stop to gossip is to shut your mouth. Every week, no greater joy than to tell people to shut their mouths. But that is because, like everything else, lies and boasting and complaining, sometimes the very best thing and most immediate thing you can do is just zip it. It is just shut your mouth. And to remove yourself from being a source of gossip, or to remove yourself from the chain of gossip. And it's all well and good for me to stand up and say, and just stop it, like that's going to carry anything or mean anything. I mean, the English have tried to tell you guys what to do before, and you didn't take that very well. So it's been 250 years, we're over it. But here's the thing. I want you to be the person to tell you to shut your mouth. And the thing that I think that you need to be able to do that is to remember what you have done. I want you to take a walk down memory lane and think of the time that you have gossiped and you've seen the consequences. You've either seen or heard of the pain caused. You've seen tears shed. I want you, and I pray for all of us, that we would understand the full ramifications of gossip and what it does to a person and their trust of people and their love for their God. When we understand that, when we get that, that should put a roadblock in our path to wanting to do it again. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to do one of three things that change in their and increase in their boldness. The first is I would like you to put pen to paper about when you have gossiped in the past. And something about getting in the exterior and saying, this is what I have done, this is the pain that I have caused, because I want you to remember that. I don't want you to dwell on it and let it run your life, but I want you to remember it to help you shut your mouth in the next instance. The next step, if you're feeling bold, would be to put it on your connection card. We're not going to use it, we're not going to post it, we're not going to share it, but I want you to be willing to share it with someone and say, this is what I've done. You can use as much detail or be as vague as you want. But this isn't for us to read, this is for you to write. So you can express it and know that someone else knows it, so that you can express that it's bad and you want it to be gone and forgiven. And here's the third thing, if you're feeling super gutsy today. I want you to post about your gossip on social media. I want you to be willing to start a new trend of owning the fact that we have gossiped, that we do gossip, that it's a bad thing, and we desire not to do it again. I want you to use the hashtag #NextSteps. I want you to hashtag shut your mouth. And I want you to be either willing to post in text or with a video, the time you remember that you caused damage and pain and hurt with your gossip. To start changing the cultures, changing our community, letting people know we're not perfect, but we're trying to do it different. Now, those are some big first steps for you to take. But it starts by owning the fact that it's bad, and that will help us in shutting our mouths. The second thing to do, to be able to not gossip, is to be loved. Now, it seems kind of backwards, but I truly believe that as human beings, we have nothing that we have not first been given. And if the antidote to gossip is going to be love, then we have to have something that supersedes our desire to bring others down and to spread gossip. You think about it, when you're a baby, you don't have anything that you're not first given. When you go to school, you don't have any knowledge or wisdom that you're not being first given. And in the same way, I don't believe that you have enough love, that I have enough love for others without it first being given and displayed to me. The solution to our cause that leads to our symptom is to be loved. And this is God's greatest interjection into human history. He gave us a display and a show of what that really looks like, not just so we can copy it, not just so we can say that's the right way to do it, not just so we can say it happened and that it's a part of history and just know it, but so that we can personally own the fact that it was done for me and for you. He interjected into human history in such a dramatic way that it has changed more people, more culture, more society, and more lives than any other interjection ever. One of the authors of the New Testament, a guy called John, who describes himself as one of the closest to Jesus when he was on earth, once wrote this. He said, God showed how much he loved us by sending his one and only Son into the world so that we might have eternal life through him. This is real love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as a sacrifice to take away our sins. Dear friends, since God loved us that much, we surely ought to love each other. Now this morning, we're just talking about gossip. It's a small slither of life. It's a topic. But like everything else in this world, gossip is something that is supposed to point us in a direction. The fact that gossip exists, that there's enough hate in our hearts to do it, should let us know that something is wrong, that that's not right, that that's not how people should be treated, it's not how I should be treated. So gossip becomes a pointer to a larger issue at hand, and it wants to direct us to something that everything wants to direct us to. The thing that God has been trying to do since you were born, the thing that he's been doing for millennia, and the thing that he has been doing this morning. See, God's mission and the mission of the church is just to relay one thing. He loves you. He really, really loves you. And he loves you more than you've ever been loved. He actually loves you so much you can't even comprehend it fully how much he loves you. But what he's been trying to do through history and today and in the last years of your life is to show you it, to give you glimpses of it, so that you can take it, so that you can own it. So if we want to love people, we have to understand it's not going to happen by willpower. It has to rest in the fact that we know what real love is and that we have it, that we've taken personal ownership of it. And that and only that will help us then to give that off to other people. It is when we've truly owned it that we can do what John says and says, since God loved us that much, we surely ought to love each other. The surely ought to love each other can only come once we fully understand real, authentic, deep, true, permanent love. So if you're here this morning because you just wanted to learn how to love people, it has to track back to a desire in a relationship to be loved by God first. One of the ways that we understand that, or try and understand that more and remember that, is by taking communion together. Now, communion can mean different things for different people, and whether you've never taken it before and you've never understood it, or maybe it was just a stale ritual for you in times past, I want to explain to you what communion is. See, because communion was something that was left behind by Jesus for us to do regularly. In fact, he said, do it regularly. There was kind of no hints there. It was obvious. Do this regularly to remember something. And the thing that he wanted us to remember was the most important thing that we could ever remember. So what we do is we take some juice, in our day non-alcoholic, and we take some bread, in our day with a gluten-free option. And with those two things, what we do is we remember something. What Jesus left behind for us to remember is that at a certain day in history, God interjected and showed the greatest display of love ever shown. And he gave to us everything of perfection. And we represent that with bread to represent a body and juice to represent a blood that was given to clear the way. For all of the gossip and the lies and the evil things that we've done, those were given to be able to put all of our punishment deserved on that so that we can have a fresh relationship with God. So we take communion simply to remember that. And the reason we take it is we eat it. We eat it because then we own it and it becomes a part of us. And to own real love means owning that it's now a part of who you are. And we own something that doesn't come from us but comes from God. And when we eat it and when we own it, we can then come to the realization and we can own the fact that we are the most loved thing in this entire earth. We are more loved than we'll ever fathom, more loved than we can control or stop. And it's then that we should be the most loving people on earth. It's then that we can be better parents and husbands and wives and teachers and lawyers and policemen and officials and friends. That's when we can give love to other people. So what we're going to do here in a second is I'm first going to invite our worship team who leads us in musical worship, and they're going to actually lead us through a song while we're taking this communion together. And the communion team is going to head down the aisles and going to send bread and juice for you to take. Don't grab it if you're not ready. It seems counterintuitive to say that, but don't be ashamed of not doing something you haven't made a decision to do yet. But if you're ready, take it. If you're ready to own the fact that you're loved more than you've ever known before and ready to love better than you've ever loved before, own it and take it. There's no other prerequisites. That you want to be right with God, that you agree that God's greatest display of love and the greatest display of love ever was for Jesus to live sacrificially for us and die sacrificially, then you can take it with us. That's the only thing you have to be ready for. So if you're ready to do that, you're ready to pray with me, ready to take communion, ready to worship. So would you do that with me, please? Father God, we thank you that we get to take communion. There's something to remember. There's something that was done in history that should just blow our minds. So we thank you that we can come just as we are, and we can come just with all of our brokenness and our hurt and our doubts even, and still just ask you for forgiveness and ask you to love us and ask you to make us loving. We make all these requests as we take communion together in Jesus' name. Amen.